My mom refused to watch over my sick child because she wasn't willing to sacrifice her weekend. I missed an important interview to stay with my son and lost the chance for a promotion. When I said I wouldn't help them anymore, they started demanding money. Today they are standing at the doorstep saying they're homeless. I've always known my mother was selfish, but yesterday I discovered just how far she's willing to go. Some background: I'm 31, single mom to Gregory, and we've been on our own since he was 2. His dad moved across the country for a fresh start and sends birthday cards with $20 inside twice a year, once on Christmas, once on Gregory's birthday. Sometimes he remembers, sometimes he doesn't. I've been working at the same company for 4 years, in an administrative role that pays the bills but not much else. Between rent, childcare, and Gregory's asthma medication, it's a constant juggling act. For the past 6 months, I've been putting in extra hours, taking on special projects, and basically doing everything possible to position myself for a promotion to executive assistant that would mean a salary bump. That might not sound like much to some people, but for us, it's the difference between constantly checking my bank account before grocery shopping and actually being able to breathe a little. My boss, Andrew, had been dropping hints that I was the front runner and finally scheduled my interview for Friday at 2 p.m. I had everything planned perfectly. Gregory would be at school, I'd take a long lunch for the interview, and be back at my desk by 3:30. Except Wednesday night, Gregory started coughing. Not his normal cough. That deep, barking seal cough that always means his asthma is flaring up. By Thursday morning, he had a fever of 101.3, and I knew there was no way he could go to school Friday. I called in sick Thursday to take him to the pediatrician, who prescribed a steroid and said Gregory needed to rest for at least 48 hours. When we got home, I immediately called my mom. This is where I made my first mistake. I assumed that given the circumstances, she would help. My parents live about 25 minutes away in the same suburban development they've been in since I was born. My dad is semi-retired and my mom doesn't work. They go out to dinner 3 times a week, take weekend trips to their lake house, and generally live a comfortable life. They've always been emotionally distant, but they've occasionally watched Gregory in true emergencies. When I called my mom and explained the situation, there was this long pause on the phone. Then she said, "And I wish I was making this up. Oh, honey, this weekend isn't good for us. Your father and I are going to the Williams anniversary party Saturday, and I need Friday to get my hair done and prepare. You know how these things are." I reminded her that this promotion would mean financial stability for her only grandson. I wasn't asking her to watch Gregory for the weekend, just for 2 hours on Friday afternoon. 2 hours. She sighed that long-suffering sigh I've heard my whole life, and said she just couldn't rearrange everything last minute, and that maybe this was a sign I needed to reevaluate my priorities as a mother. I hung up before I said something I'd regret. Then I called everyone else I could think of. Friends, neighbors, even Gregory's friends' parents from school. But with such short notice and him being sick, nobody could help. I tried calling my boss to reschedule, but he was in meetings all day. I left a message with Isla in HR explaining my situation and asking if we could move the interview to Monday. Friday morning, I got the response. Andrew had a packed schedule the following week, and Juliet from HR explained they needed to make a decision by Tuesday. The interview had to happen Friday or not at all. I was devastated but replied that I understood and would have to withdraw from consideration. Gregory spent Friday alternating between watching cartoons and napping on the couch while I tried not to cry every time I thought about what this meant for us. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "How did the interview go? Did you make it work?" I stared at my phone in disbelief. It was like she had completely forgotten our conversation. Or maybe in her mind, I was supposed to magically solve the problem without her help. I didn't respond. Saturday morning, another text. "We're heading to the Williams party. You and Gregory should come by for dinner tomorrow. I'm making pot roast." As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't just cost me the opportunity I'd been working toward for months. I finally called her Sunday morning while Gregory was watching TV. I told her we wouldn't be coming for dinner, and that I was hurt by her refusal to help when I needed her most. Her response? "You can't expect me to drop everything every time you have a crisis. I raised you, and now raising Gregory is your responsibility." The conversation deteriorated from there. I reminded her that in the 4 years since Gregory's father left, I'd asked for her help maybe 5 times total. She countered by listing all the birthday and Christmas gifts they've given him, as if presents make up for actual support. When I pointed out that I've helped them countless times, setting up their smart TV, driving my dad to physical therapy after his knee surgery last year, helping them move furniture when they redecorated, she dismissed it as things family just does. By the end of the call, I was shaking with anger and told her I needed some space. That maybe it was time I stopped dropping everything to help them when they never seemed to have time for me or Gregory. She got quiet and said, "You know, we were hoping you could help us out with some expenses this month. Your father's medication costs went up, and with the property taxes due." I couldn't believe it. In the same conversation where she refused to acknowledge how her selfishness hurt me, she was asking for money. Money I now wouldn't have because of the promotion I missed because of her. I told her I couldn't help financially right now, especially not after losing this opportunity. She mumbled something about how family should support each other. The irony was not lost on me, and hung up. Monday morning, I got the official email. The position had been offered to someone else, someone who managed to show up for their interview. I took my lunch break in my car and cried for a solid 20 minutes, then washed my face and went back to my desk like nothing happened. That evening, my dad called. He started with small talk about the weather and some neighborhood gossip before awkwardly transitioning to, "Your mother told me about your conversation." He tried to smooth things over, saying she didn't mean to seem unsupportive, but they really were counting on me to help with some bills this month. When I reminded him about the missed interview, he just said, "These things happen, honey. There will be other opportunities." It's now been 3 days. Gregory is feeling better and back at school. I'm back at my desk watching the person who got my promotion learning the ropes. My parents have called twice and texted multiple times, all about when I can contribute to their expenses this month. I'm done. After years of one-sided support, I'm finally setting boundaries. I texted them that I won't be able to help financially or otherwise for the foreseeable future, and I need them to respect that. Their response? "We're family. We're supposed to help each other." Yes, we are family, but apparently that only matters when they need something from me. I don't know what happens next. Part of me feels guilty for cutting them off, but another part feels like I should have done this years ago. Gregory keeps asking when we're going to visit Grandma and Grandpa, and I don't know what to tell him. Edit. For those suggesting I should have taken Gregory to the interview, he was genuinely ill with a fever and couldn't stop coughing. I couldn't leave him alone, and bringing a 6-7-year-old to a professional interview wasn't an option. First update. It's been just over 2 weeks since my last post, and I wanted to update you all because things have taken a turn I honestly didn't expect, even with my parents' track record. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your stories and advice helped me feel less alone and more confident in my decision to set boundaries. After I sent that text telling my parents I couldn't help them financially anymore, they went silent for exactly 3 days. I actually started to wonder if maybe they were reflecting on their behavior, or at least respecting my boundaries. That hope evaporated Tuesday evening when I was making dinner for Gregory and myself, just some boxed mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it, his favorite comfort food. My phone lit up with a message, and I figured it was Juliet from next door asking if I needed anything from the store like she sometimes does. Instead, it was my mother with a screenshot of an overdue credit card bill for $4,378.62. No context, no message, just the screenshot. I didn't respond. 20 minutes later, another text. "We need help with this by Friday, or they'll raise our interest rate." I stirred the mac and cheese, thinking about all the times over the years I'd helped them out financially. Last Christmas, when they couldn't afford gifts for Gregory, but somehow managed a weekend trip to a ski lodge in January. The emergency car repair last summer that turned out to be an elective upgrade to their sound system. Each time, I dipped into my meager savings because they'd framed it as dire and temporary. I put my phone away and focused on dinner with Gregory. He'd been asking about my parents all week, and I'd been vague, telling him they were busy. I hate keeping things from him, but he adores his grandparents despite their flakiness, and I don't want to burden him with adult problems. While we ate, he told me about the solar system project his class was starting and how he got picked to be Jupiter because it's the biggest and has the most moons, Mom. After he went to bed, I checked my phone again. 3 missed calls from my dad and a voicemail where his voice sounded tense. "Honey, call us back. This is important. Your mother is very upset." I didn't call back. Instead, I sent a text reiterating that I couldn't help financially right now, especially after missing the promotion. Then I turned my phone on silent and spent an hour applying for jobs. The promotion fiasco had been a wake-up call. 4 years of loyalty to a company, and I was still easily replaceable. I needed to look out for Gregory and myself first. The next morning, I woke up to a novel-length text from my mother explaining that the credit card debt was mostly from helping me and Gregory. This was news to me. I scrolled through my own bank statements from the past year while waiting for my coffee to brew. In that time, they had given Gregory a $30 Target gift card for his birthday, passed along some hand-me-down clothes from my cousin's kid, which didn't fit, and taken us out to dinner once at Applebee's, using a buy-one-get-one coupon they'd mentioned at least 3 times. Meanwhile, I'd given them $800 when their water heater broke, spent over $200 on my dad's birthday present, and countless hours helping them with everything from technology issues to driving them to appointments when my dad's cataracts made night driving difficult. I took Gregory to school and went to work, where I had to train Ronnie on some procedures he'd need in his new role, my would-be role. He seemed genuinely uncomfortable about the situation and kept saying things like, "You really had this down pat, and they should have just waited to interview you." It was awkward, but not his fault. During lunch, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Thinking it might be from one of my job applications, I answered. It was my Aunt Isla, my mom's sister, whom I speak to maybe twice a year on holidays. She launched into a speech about how worried she was about my parents and how she understood I might be going through a tough time emotionally, but family needs to stick together. I realized my parents had been calling relatives, painting themselves as victims abandoned by their ungrateful daughter. When I tried explaining what actually happened with the interview and years of one-sided support, she interrupted with, "Well, that's your perspective, but your mother says she's always been there for you." After that call, I Googled how to tell if your parents are manipulative and spent my entire lunch break reading articles that felt like they were written specifically about my family dynamic. The realization that this wasn't normal, that parents shouldn't make their children feel perpetually indebted, hit me harder than I expected. I went to the bathroom and cried for 5 minutes before returning to my desk with what I hoped was a convincing "I'm fine" smile. That evening, Gregory and I were at the playground when my dad pulled up in their SUV. Gregory spotted him immediately and ran over excitedly. My stomach dropped. I hadn't prepared for this confrontation, especially not with Gregory present. My dad hugged Gregory and asked if he could talk to me, just for a minute. I sent Gregory back to the swings where I could still see him and turned to my dad with arms crossed. He looked tired, and for a second I felt that reflexive guilt I've carried my whole life. Then he started explaining how my mother has been crying herself to sleep because I've shut them out. And by the way, did I know their homeowner's insurance premium was due next week? I interrupted him and pointed out that he'd driven 25 minutes to the playground to guilt trip me, but couldn't drive the same distance to help when Gregory was sick. He actually looked surprised, like this connection had never occurred to him. We talked for about 10 minutes, with him alternating between subtle guilt tactics and direct requests for money. I finally told him I needed to get Gregory home for dinner, and that I'd think about what he said. The relief on his face was immediate. He thought he'd won. In his mind, "I'll think about it" had always meant yes, I'll help, because that's how it had always played out before. Over the weekend, my brother Damien called, which was unusual since we typically just text. Like my aunt, he'd gotten an earful from our parents. Unlike her, he saw through their manipulation. "They pulled the same crap with me last year," he told me. "I lent them money for what they claimed was a plumbing emergency, then saw Mom's Facebook post about their new patio furniture the next week." It was vindicating to know I wasn't alone in this experience. Damien and I agreed to keep each other informed about our parents' financial requests going forward. Monday morning, I got a message from a company I'd applied to asking for an interview. It was for a position similar to what I'm doing now, but with better pay and benefits. I scheduled the interview for the following week, allowing plenty of time to arrange childcare, this time with Juliet, who had offered to help after hearing about what happened with my parents. That afternoon, my mother texted again. "We're very disappointed in your attitude. Your father and I have always supported you, and this is how you repay us. We need to talk about this credit card bill." I didn't respond, but I did check their Facebook page. There were posts from just the previous weekend showing them at a nice restaurant with their friends. My mom wearing what looked like a new dress based on the caption, "Feeling fabulous in my birthday splurge." Tuesday night, Gregory was in bed and I was folding laundry when someone knocked on the door. It was almost 9 p.m., so I checked through the peephole before opening. My mother stood there looking somehow both angry and victimized simultaneously. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. She immediately launched into a speech about family obligations and how she and my dad were facing severe financial hardship because of unexpected expenses. When I asked what these expenses were, she became vague, mentioning medical bills, though both my parents are on Medicare, house repairs, though their house is newer than my apartment building, and general cost of living increases. I remained calm and repeated that I couldn't help financially right now. She switched tactics, asking if I could at least help them organize their finances since I'm good with budgeting. Translation: she wanted me to look at their finances, feel guilty about their situation, and offer money. I suggested they speak with a financial advisor at their bank or look into credit counseling services. Her face hardened, and she said something that's been replaying in my mind since. "I don't think you understand. We're your parents. We took care of you for 18 years. Now it's your turn to take care of us." I told her I needed to check on Gregory and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her stand there for almost a full minute before walking back to her car, where my dad was waiting in the passenger seat. Yesterday, I got a group text from my mother to me, Damien, and several extended family members with a link to a GoFundMe titled, "Help 2 Seniors Stay in Their Home." The description vaguely mentioned medical issues and unexpected expenses without specifying anything concrete. The goal was set at $15,000. There were no donations yet. Damien called me immediately, and we were both speechless. Our parents own their home outright. It was paid off years ago. They have retirement income from my dad's pension and Social Security. They are not in danger of homelessness. This was manipulation taken to a new level. I haven't responded to the group text, neither has Damien, but my aunt has already messaged me privately, asking why I won't step up for my parents given everything they've done for me. I'm still processing all of this while preparing for my job interview next week. Gregory keeps asking why we haven't visited Grandma and Grandpa, and I'm running out of excuses. Part of me feels like I'm being cold-hearted, but another part feels like I'm finally standing up for myself after years of being taken advantage of. This morning, I received an email from my dad with, "Urgent, please read" in the subject line. The body of the email just said, "We need to talk face to face. It's about the house." I don't know what to expect next, but I'm trying to stay strong in my boundaries. The job interview next week feels like a potential fresh start, a chance to move forward without the constant drain of supporting people who seem incapable of supporting me when I truly need it. Has anyone dealt with escalating demands after setting boundaries with family? Any advice on how to handle this without completely burning bridges for Gregory's sake? Edit. Thank you all again for the support. To clarify some things from comments, no, I don't think they're actually in danger of losing their house. For those asking about Gregory's father, he pays the minimum child support required by court order, but it barely covers Gregory's asthma medication. Second update. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. I'm typing this on my phone at 1 a.m. because I can't sleep, so please excuse any typos. After my dad sent that urgent email about the house, I decided to meet with them in a public place rather than at my apartment. I suggested the Starbucks near Gregory's school last Saturday morning. I figured the public setting would keep things civil, and I could pick up Gregory from his friend's sleepover right after. I arrived early and grabbed a table in the corner. My parents walked in 15 minutes late, which was typical. My mom was wearing her designer sunglasses and carrying her Coach purse, the one I helped her pick out for her birthday last year. My dad had on his golf shirt despite the cool weather. Neither of them looked like people in dire financial straits. As soon as they sat down, they started talking over each other about how their mortgage company was harassing them about missed payments. I interrupted to point out that they'd told me multiple times over the years that their house was paid off. There was this awkward silence, and then my mom admitted they had taken out a home equity line of credit 3 years ago. Apparently, they'd used it to renovate their kitchen, take a cruise to Alaska, and help out with expenses. When I asked why they hadn't mentioned this before, my dad mumbled something about not wanting to worry me. The truth became clear as they explained further. They'd been making minimum payments, mostly covering just the interest, and now the bank was concerned about their payment history. They weren't facing immediate foreclosure. They were just being asked to make regular payments on time. I felt this weird mix of relief that they weren't actually losing their home and frustration at the manipulation. I asked about the GoFundMe, which had accumulated a grand total of $175 from 3 donors. My mom waved her hand dismissively and said it was just in case things got worse. I explained again that I couldn't help them financially, especially now that I knew the real situation. I suggested they talk to a financial advisor about possibly refinancing or making a payment plan. My dad started to argue, but I stood firm. The conversation ended with my mom sniffling into a napkin and my dad staring silently into his untouched coffee. I left feeling drained but somehow lighter. I picked up Gregory, who was full of stories about his sleepover, and we spent the rest of the weekend doing homework and watching movies. I tried to put my parents out of my mind and focus on my upcoming job interview. The interview went surprisingly well. The position was with a smaller company but offered better pay and more flexibility. The manager, Douglas, seemed genuinely interested in my experience, and when I explained my childcare situation, without going into the drama with my parents, he mentioned that they had a work-from-home option for parents when kids were sick. I tried not to get too excited, but it felt promising. Then last Tuesday, while I was making dinner and helping Gregory with his Jupiter project, he was painting papier-mâché and our tiny kitchen table was covered in newspaper and glue. My phone pinged with a text from my Aunt Isla. It was a screenshot of a Facebook post from my mom. Sometimes the hardest part of being a parent is watching your child make poor decisions. Praying for guidance during this difficult time. The comments were filled with vague, sympathetic responses, with my mom replying cryptically about financial hardships and ungrateful children. My aunt's message below the screenshot said, "What's going on? Your mom is posting concerning things." I didn't respond immediately. Gregory and I finished his planet, cleaned up the kitchen, and went through his bedtime routine. After he was asleep, I drafted several responses to my aunt but deleted them all. How could I explain years of one-sided support and manipulation in a text? Instead, I messaged my brother Damien, who confirmed he'd seen the posts and had already called out our mom in the comments. His comment had mysteriously disappeared within an hour. Wednesday evening, I got the call I'd been hoping for. Douglas offered me the job, with a start date 3 weeks out to give proper notice at my current position. The salary was $2,000 more than what the promotion would have been, plus better benefits and that crucial flexibility for Gregory's needs. I accepted on the spot and felt a wave of relief wash over me. This was the fresh start we needed. I picked up Gregory from after-school care and took him for ice cream to celebrate. While we were sitting at the little table, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. It was our apartment complex manager, asking if my parents were authorized to enter my unit. Apparently, they had shown up claiming they needed to drop off something important for Gregory but had forgotten their key. My stomach dropped. I had never given them a key, and they definitely weren't authorized to enter my apartment. I told the manager absolutely not, thanked her for checking, and immediately called my parents. No answer from either of them. I rushed Gregory through the rest of his ice cream and drove home, worried about what they might be up to. When we pulled into the parking lot, my parents' SUV was still there, parked in a visitor spot. I told Gregory to wait in the car with the doors locked, something I'd never done before, and promised I'd be right back. I tried calling my parents again as I walked to the manager's office, but still no answer. The manager, Ariana, looked relieved to see me. She explained that my parents had become increasingly insistent about accessing my apartment, claiming they'd left medicine for Gregory inside. When she'd refused without my authorization, they'd sat down in the lobby and said they would wait. They'd been there for almost 2 hours. I steeled myself and walked to the lobby, where I found my parents sitting with a small suitcase and my mom's oversized purse. They looked up when I entered, and my mom immediately burst into tears. My dad stood and started explaining that they'd had a misunderstanding with their mortgage company, and their utilities had been shut off due to clerical errors. They needed a place to stay just for a few days until everything got sorted out. I stood there in disbelief. They had tried to manipulate their way into my apartment before I got home, presumably to establish themselves before I could object. I asked why they hadn't called first. My dad claimed their phones were about to be shut off too, and they wanted to tell me in person. Yet they'd managed to drive 25 minutes to my apartment and wait for hours instead of just calling. I told them they couldn't stay with me. My apartment has 1 bedroom, which I share with Gregory, and a pull-out couch in the living room that's barely big enough for 1 person. More importantly, I wasn't comfortable having them stay after everything that had happened. I suggested they could go to a hotel using the credit card they'd recently shown me, or stay with my Aunt Isla, who lived closer to them and had a guest room. My mom's tears turned to anger. She said I was abandoning them when they needed me most, just like I had accused them of doing to me. My dad started listing all the things they'd done for me growing up, paying for my school lunches, buying me clothes, taking me to doctor appointments. Basic parental responsibilities presented as if they were extraordinary acts of generosity. Gregory was still waiting in the car, so I had to end this quickly. I told them firmly that I would help them find alternative arrangements, but they could not stay with me. My mom grabbed her purse and stormed out, but my dad lingered, looking genuinely confused, as if he couldn't understand why I wasn't folding like I always had before. I spent the next hour making calls to my aunt, who reluctantly agreed they could stay with her for a few days, to my brother, who offered to drive over and help if needed, and finally to my parents, leaving a voicemail with my aunt's address and phone number, all while trying to keep things normal for Gregory, who sensed something was wrong but didn't understand what. The next morning, my dad texted to say they were at my aunt's and would figure things out. I went to work, gave my notice, and tried to focus on the positive changes ahead. When I picked up Gregory from school, he asked if Grandma and Grandpa were okay. I kept my explanation simple. They were having some problems with their house but were staying with Aunt Isla. He seemed satisfied with that. Friday afternoon, I was at my desk finishing up some paperwork when my phone buzzed with a notification from my building's resident portal. Someone had requested to be added to my apartment's approved visitor list. My parents. I immediately declined the request and called the manager to make it clear they should not be given access under any circumstances. Ariana hesitated, then told me something concerning. My mom had come by earlier claiming she needed to drop off Gregory's medication. When reminded that I had specifically denied them entry, she'd become argumentative, insisting that as Gregory's grandmother, she had rights. Ariana had remained firm, but warned me that my mother had mentioned coming back on Saturday, today, when she knew we'd be home. I thanked her and spent the rest of my workday distracted, running through scenarios in my head. When I got home with Gregory, I double-checked our locks and closed all the blinds, something I rarely do. We ordered pizza for dinner, and I tried to keep things upbeat for Gregory's sake, suggesting we build a blanket fort and watch a movie inside it. Around 8 p.m., while we were halfway through How to Train Your Dragon with popcorn scattered across our fort, someone knocked on the door. I knew immediately who it was. I told Gregory to keep watching while I answered, positioning myself so the door wouldn't open fully. My parents stood there with a small suitcase from before, plus 2 more bags. My dad smiled as if nothing was wrong and said they'd decided my place made more sense than my aunt's, since I had more room, completely untrue, and was closer to their doctors, also untrue. My mom peered past me, calling out to Gregory, who perked up at the sound of her voice. I stepped into the hallway, partially closing the door behind me, and told them directly they could not stay with me. Not now, not this weekend, not just until things get sorted out. My mom's face hardened, and she said something that chilled me. We'll see what the police have to say about a daughter turning away her elderly parents with nowhere to go. It was such a blatant threat that I almost laughed. I calmly explained that as adults with resources, including at least one functioning credit card, a car, and relatives willing to house them, they were not homeless or elderly in any vulnerable sense. If they contacted the police, they would simply be directed to social services or back to my aunt's house. My dad, seemingly realizing their threat had failed, changed tactics. He mentioned that Gregory's birthday was coming up next month, and wouldn't it be sad if they couldn't attend or bring presents because they were living in their car? The manipulation was so transparent, it made me feel sick. I told them I needed to get back to Gregory, and that I would be blocking their numbers temporarily. I suggested they return to my aunt's or use their credit card for a hotel. Then I went back inside, locked the door, and returned to our blanket fort, my hands shaking slightly. Gregory asked if Grandma and Grandpa were coming in. I told him they had just stopped by to say hello, but had to go to Aunt Isla's house. He accepted this and went back to the movie. But I spent the rest of the evening on edge, jumping slightly at every noise from the hallway. They knocked twice more before finally leaving. I checked through the peephole each time but didn't open the door. Around 10 p.m., after Gregory was asleep, I got a flurry of texts from both of them, ranging from guilt-tripping, I guess 30 years of parenting means nothing, to angry, you'll regret this when we're gone, to bizarre claims that they were now officially homeless, and it was my fault. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I texted my aunt, who confirmed they had returned to her house, complaining loudly about my cruelty, but accepting her guest room nonetheless. This morning, I woke up to an email from my dad with a detailed list of everything they had ever spent on me, from my birth through college, with an estimated total at the bottom that he claimed I owed them. Items included basic necessities like food, clothing, and doctor visits, as well as emotional labor with a dollar amount assigned. I'm not responding to that either. Instead, I took Gregory to the park, helped him with homework, and am trying to focus on our future with my new job. But I'm worried about what they might try next. They've never taken no for an answer before, and they seem determined to make this my problem. Edit. Several people have asked if I can stay with a friend temporarily. Unfortunately, that's not really an option with Gregory's school and my work schedule. Plus, this is our home. I don't want to be driven out of it. Edit 2. To those suggesting I call Adult Protective Services, my parents are in their early 60s, fully mobile, mentally competent, and have resources. They are choosing this behavior as a manipulation tactic, not because they're vulnerable adults who can't care for themselves. Last update. I wasn't sure if I'd ever post another update, but something happened yesterday that I'm still processing, and writing has always helped me sort through my thoughts. Plus, so many of you have reached out asking how things turned out that I figured I owe you the final chapter of this saga. It's been just over 6 months since that night my parents showed up at my door with suitcases, claiming homelessness. A lot has changed since then, mostly for the better. I've been at my new job for 5 months now. The promised flexibility has been real. When Gregory had an asthma flare-up last month, I worked from home for 3 days without any guilt trips from management. The extra income hasn't made us rich by any means, but I no longer wake up at 3 a.m. calculating whether I can afford both Gregory's school supplies and the electric bill. We moved too, about 7 weeks ago. Just a small 2-bedroom apartment in the same school district, but Gregory finally has his own room. You should have seen his face when we went furniture shopping at IKEA and I told him he could pick out his own bedspread. He chose one with planets. Our refrigerator isn't constantly on the verge of dying, and the shower maintains water pressure for more than 5 minutes. Small luxuries that feel enormous after years of making do. As for my parents, that situation has been complicated. After the night they showed up at our door, I didn't hear from them directly for almost 3 weeks. Instead, they launched what my brother Damien calls the family PR campaign. My Aunt Isla, various cousins, even my dad's bowling buddies, all contacted me with different versions of "they're really struggling" and "family should stick together." I started therapy about a month after my last post. My new insurance covers it, and honestly, it's been eye-opening. My therapist helped me see patterns I'd been blind to my whole life, how I'd been trained since childhood to feel responsible for my parents' happiness and financial stability, how no was never treated as a complete sentence in our family, how guilt was weaponized whenever I tried to establish independence. I kept the documentation going, saving every text, email, and voicemail. In late March, I had to use it. My parents somehow convinced Gregory's school that they were authorized to pick him up for a doctor's appointment. Thankfully, the front office called me to confirm, and I was able to rush over there. My parents were in the parking lot waiting. When I confronted them, my mom claimed they just wanted some quality time with their grandson. After that incident, I spoke with the school administration, showed them the documentation of ongoing harassment, and they updated their security protocols. That was the turning point. I sent a certified letter to my parents stating that any further attempts to see Gregory without my explicit permission would result in legal action. I didn't want to do it. Writing that letter made my hands shake, but Gregory's safety had to come first. They backed off after that, at least physically. Gregory has struggled with all this, unsurprisingly. He misses his grandparents and doesn't fully understand why we don't see them anymore. I've tried to explain in age-appropriate ways without demonizing them. We've had many conversations on the drive to school about how sometimes people we love can make choices that aren't healthy, and how it's okay to love someone but need space from them. I'm not sure how much sinks in, but he seems to be adjusting. My relationship with my brother has actually improved through all this. Damien and I were never particularly close. He's 5 years older and moved across the state after college. But dealing with our parents' behavior has brought us together. He visits about once a month now, and Gregory adores his cool uncle, who teaches him card tricks and brings him comic books. In April, I learned through family gossip that my parents had indeed fallen behind on their mortgage payments, but not because they were destitute. They'd been prioritizing credit card spending over housing payments, assuming they could always catch up later. According to my aunt, who has become surprisingly supportive once she saw the full picture, they worked out a payment plan with the bank and are no longer in danger of foreclosure. They never were truly homeless. It was manipulation, pure and simple. My aunt also let slip that my mom had been furious when I got the new job instead of helping them out financially. Apparently, she'd been counting on my guilt as a reliable income source, and my sudden backbone had thrown off their financial plans. I wish I could say I processed all this with perfect emotional clarity, but that wouldn't be true. There have been nights I've cried after Gregory went to bed, wondering if I'm doing the right thing. Days I've composed lengthy text messages explaining my perspective, only to delete them unsent. Moments I've seen something Gregory did and thought, Mom would love this, before remembering where we stand. The hardest part has been holidays and birthdays. Gregory turned 8 last month and he asked if Grandma and Grandpa were coming to his party. I had arranged a small celebration at the local bowling alley with a few friends from school. When I told him they weren't coming, his little face fell for just a moment before he rallied and started talking about the cake. That moment gutted me. I did send them photos of Gregory at his party through my aunt. I'm not trying to cut them off from knowing anything about his life. I'm just setting boundaries about direct contact until I can trust their behavior. Now, about that unexpected call. Yesterday morning, I was making pancakes for Gregory, our Saturday tradition, when my phone rang with my dad's number. I nearly declined it automatically, but something made me answer. His voice sounded different, quieter, less entitled somehow. He asked how we were doing, and for once, he actually waited for my answer instead of launching into his own issues. I gave vague, polite responses. Then he said something I never expected to hear. My mom had started seeing a therapist too. Apparently, after months of getting nowhere with their campaign to regain access to me and my wallet, my mom had a health scare. Nothing serious, just high blood pressure that required medication adjustment. But it prompted her doctor to recommend therapy for stress management. She'd been going for about 6 weeks. According to my dad, her therapist had been helping her recognize some of her behavior patterns. He said she was starting to understand how her actions had pushed me away. There was no grand apology, no dramatic promises of change, just my dad saying she was working on some things and seeing things differently. He just said they'd like to gradually rebuild some kind of relationship on whatever terms I was comfortable with. I told him I needed time to think about it, and he accepted that without argument. Another surprising change. Before hanging up, he mentioned that they'd set up automatic payments for their mortgage and were working with a financial advisor at their bank. It felt like he was trying to show they were addressing the problems that had led to their homelessness claims. I'm still not sure what to do with this development. 6 months of therapy has taught me to be cautious about getting pulled back into old patterns, but it's also helped me recognize that relationships can evolve if both parties are willing to do the work. The question is whether my mom's therapy is genuine self-reflection or just another tool to get what she wants. For now, I'm taking it day by day. I've suggested to my dad that we start with occasional emails sharing updates about Gregory, photos, school achievements, that kind of thing. No in-person visits yet, no financial discussions, and absolutely no unsupervised contact with Gregory. He seemed surprisingly okay with these terms. My therapist has suggested that true change takes time to prove itself. Words are easy. Consistent actions over months or years are what matter. So I'm proceeding with cautious optimism, but keeping my boundaries firm. Life isn't perfect. Our new apartment has a persistent dripping sound in the bathroom that the maintenance guy can't seem to fix. My car made a concerning noise last week that I'm ignoring because I don't want to know what it will cost to repair. Gregory still sometimes has nightmares and crawls into my bed at 2 a.m. My new job has its own stresses and office politics, but underlying all these ordinary challenges is a new feeling I'm still getting used to. The sense that I'm finally steering my own life instead of just reacting to everyone else's emergencies. It's both empowering and terrifying. I don't know what the future holds with my parents. Maybe they're truly changing. Maybe this is just a more sophisticated manipulation. Either way, I'm no longer the person who will sacrifice her future and her child's well-being to meet their demands. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey with advice, similar stories, and encouragement. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference.